but I am not actually going to be racing because I'm obviously doing the broadcasting. But in terms of everything now, it seems everything has settled down. We are on board now with Diego, I think is how you say it, in the Praga, number 78, currently heading down the back straight before going into turn 8. As this is the MotoGP layout, we're not using the quite, well, aggressively angled corner there, as we do go down this a bit of a weird segment. I don't get what they've done there, because obviously it's a MotoGP layout. It is to try and prevent some really random corner, well, and also just to prevent, again, the annoying part of crashing in a motorbike, because it does happen a lot more than people think, unfortunately. But we do go back on board now with Diego as he comes across the start finish chain. I'm not sure if he's on a timed lap so far, but it does seem he has been able to set a time, but it is going to be 4 seconds slower than the Tatuus there. The Tatuus seeming to be dominant so far, and the Tatuus is on the hard tyres as well, so I'm not sure if he set that qualification time on those hard tyres, or unless he did go on to the soft tyres for it. But with only 1 minute left to go, this is going to be most people's final chance to actually set a flying lap here. So we can actually see now it's going to be Diego on for a flying lap. It does seem he is about 4 seconds so far, it seems, up on his best lap time. If he's going to be able to maintain that throughout the lap, doesn't seem so, as he's also going to crash into the other Tatuus there. Fortunately for both of them, going off into turn 3 back on board with Gelos. Does seem to be improving 2.6 seconds now as he enters into sector 3, I believe. Does seem going into the back straight now. This Tatuus seeming to be quite... I tried turning my virtual mirror off there, but it does seem it's forced by lobby, which is completely fine to say the least, as we do see now as well. A minute left to go. Having to see if Gelos is going to be able to improve his time. It's 2.6 seconds now as he comes down into the final 2 corners now. This is the same as F1 now, as it takes this very, very fast right-handers before the end there, compared to the chicane that you would take in a GT car or the original F1 design there, as it goes quite wide there. If that's going to stay in track limits, we'll find out here as he comes across the line now, as it is not going to be a time for him to improve on, it seems, as he does seem to have one more flying lap attempt. So he was on that part of the track where you can position yourself just right there. As I don't have a chat open, unfortunately, if people are actually trying to chat, because I was obviously a bit late here, but we do only have about 20 seconds until the end of qualifying, as you can see on the top of your screen there. It doesn't seem anyone else is going to attempt for a time here. I'm not sure if this is going to be our final grid here for tonight. I will just quickly check the Discord to see if there's any update on it, but I don't think we are going to see an update just yet, because that, I believe, this might be the final grid size here for tonight. I'm not sure if it is, so we'll have to find out, obviously, when we go green, obviously. As I'm going to try to find the stream so I can actually get the stream up while I wait. So it is up. Also just realised I wasn't using the correct microphone, as hopefully now I'm not so bad audio wise. Sorry about this, but we should be all good now. We do have now, well, we can actually see it's going to be the end of qualification here. We have the 2 races coming up here with all 5 of the drivers here for tonight, as it does seem, while we go out and wait for the overtime, it doesn't seem anyone else is going to be out on track. So hopefully we can go over into race 1 quite swiftly here. Hopefully it is going to provide some good racing, obviously most of them being in the same car class, the Praga there. It does seem we should be able to see some good racing here. It does seem though the Tatuus is going to seem a tiny bit OP, you could say, because he is the only Tatuus on track. So I'm hoping we can see a win from the Tatuus there. we are now, I believe, on track. Not just yet, it seems we are still waiting, unfortunately. But that shouldn't be too long of waiting, I hope. So it does seem we're about to go over now onto the race back of the servers. Obviously, as you should know, it is going to be the 2 races that we will see here for tonight. It's going to be race 1, which is going to be the qualification order, and then you have race 2, which is going to be the inverted order of the server, which is always good to see. As we do wait for that, I will just go back to the intermission tab on screen. As now, obviously, this cinematic provided by a CCTV. So we do now see it is going to be the grid forming in the next 50 seconds. I do want to apologize though if I do sound a bit rusty. I haven't done this in some time, but hopefully I'll get back into the rhythm of it, and hopefully we might see a few more cars here for tonight. It does seem a few cars who were originally with us have, yeah, it does seem they've left, so I think a lot of people might be a tiny bit late. I'm not too sure on how it's going to work just yet for tonight. Obviously, my name is Aces, also known as Alex. I am 15-year-old commentator for AK Esports and various other leagues. I do work practically most days. I don't usually do weekend commentary, so this is something a bit different from me as well, especially how it is 27 degrees currently outside, and it's like, I believe it's 35 degrees in my room, so this is going to be a bit interesting to say the least. But we do see now the server is going to go into race spec now as we go, and we wait for all of the cars to enter into the race. It does seem we have actually lost the car there. It could be from a disconnect then, though. It does seem he is back there. I think it was Equinox who left, but we do have the brilliant liveries on track. I believe most of them were made by Skittle, I believe, unless he's just posted them. But we do now see the engines are going to rev. We do have 34 seconds until race start here for tonight. It's going to be standing race start between the Pragas and the Tatuus here for tonight, like we saw for Silverstone. So that is going to be interesting to say the least. We will shuffle over into game in game now as we do wait for the cars to go green here. As we do see the lights have appeared, so we have 10 seconds till green, and now we do have the lights here. The engines are revving, 5 red lights, and we are go for the first race here for tonight at Barcelona. As it does seem it's already going to go 3 wide into certain sections of this corner as we go down into turn 1. Now the big start finish straight that it is going to provide some very good racing, to say the least. It does seem Equinox did get the greatest start in history there compared to the rest of the grid. He has gone all the way up into P1 there. It does seem though Gelos trying to get past the positions he unfortunately lost from the start of this, as we also see Sayers goes up into P3. Diego not having the greatest start of racing here, as we do see it's going to be him against Tommy as they nearly go side by side going into turn 2 there. So we do now have to wait and see if there's going to be any action taken, but we do see Equinox is going to be in quite a vulnerable position, to say the least, as it does seem that Tatuus is going to be all over the back of him, as I did hear a bit of sun there. So I do see, yes, Sayers unfortunately going into the gravel, losing his position there, but did a great save to keep it on track and got back up in no time there. As we do see now it's going to be Equinox under even more pressure than before. Can he hold it off for 14 seconds? Not 14 seconds, 14 minutes, sorry. We'll have to find out. We do see we might have actually lost the car. No, we haven't lost the car. Yes, we have. It's going to be Tommy, unfortunately, spinning there going into turn 3. And that's going to be his race over practically on board now, with Equinox once again going onto the back straight for the first time, going in to sector 3. It does seem he's going to try to brake a tiny bit later. Obviously not as much braking as you would usually get because it's the MotoGP circuit, which is going to hopefully make more racing a tiny bit harder as well for the Tatuus as well, because obviously it's going to be a tiny bit more difficult to find overtaking opportunities, as most of them are going to be faster, apart from turn 1 being that chicane that we all know and love. It does seem though it's going to be Equinox going a tiny bit wide there, so it's going to be a track limit there for himself as he go on to the start finish straight for the first time, and that is going to be an Alfa Romeo on the track, and I believe that is me, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. If I'm going to get removed, I'm not too sure, but now we do have to wait and see. In fact, I might try to do that myself. Actually, I don't think I can, so I might have to try to get removed there, unfortunately. But we do now wait and see. It does seem Equinox is actually starting to make a tiny bit of a gap for himself going into turn 2 now. So obviously, we did see Skittle last time become P3 in the second race, I believe. But here we don't see Skittle is going to be found here for tonight's race. Obviously, it was originally on a Friday for this series, now being, I guess you could say, promoted or demoted to a Sunday, which does obviously fit a lot more people better because it's a weekend. Usually people don't have stuff on, but we do see we might have our first retirement. We don't have a retirement just yet, but it does seem Tommy is not having the greatest of luck in the Praga, to say the least. Obviously no ABS in that car, so it's going to be quite prone to locking up here. In fact, it does seem that car is really loose as we're on board with it now, as it does seem he's going to come into the pits, either going to retire or get some new tires. However, we do see this battle is still going on between the two drivers. If this is going to stop, that is another question. So now we do see the Tatuus braking a bit later than we see to the than the Praga, but now going into the final few corners to take on lap 2 here. Seems he's gonna have to wait until he can actually find a way to try and get past here. This is where the slipstream might be quite mega for the Tatuus, obviously having a larger surface area. That Praga is going to suffer that, as it does seem it looks like Equinox is going to be under a lot of pressure here now, so we have to wait and see going down into the start finish straight. This is where we're going to see that slipstream take place, as I was just mentioning, but it doesn't seem it's actually doing too much there. So we go back out and into turn 1 for the second time, as it does seem he is just going to have to stay put. Obviously staying patient is always the way to go around this, because obviously you do have a second chance in the second race, even if it is going to be, it's actually going to be a tiny bit of a mistake. Then that is going to be Gelos promoted into the lead. Just a tiny bit of a wide move there from Equinox going into turn 2. Again, still 10 minutes left to go. We got to see Gelos, who does seem to be a tiny bit faster, dare I say, sorry, compared to Equinox in that Praga. In fact, he's already pulled a 1.2 second gap between him and the other car of the Praga there, and that is going to be, unfortunately, that battle over now, as we have to just wait and see if we can see any more battles that are starting to take part in the later date. It doesn't seem so, unfortunately, but we will just wait on it and just see what happens with it. Obviously these cars are very, very different between each other, as we just see that's going to be Daigo unfortunately spinning there into turn 3, and that's going to be him, I believe, just getting a tiny bit too greedy on the throttle on the exit of the corner, just spinning himself there. And that is going to promote himself practically to last on track right now, and that is going to be unfortunate there for him. But now we do have probably the better chance of finding a battle here, but that is again Tommy just not having the greatest of races so far, spinning there into the chicane of turn 7, and that is going to be practically a race ruiner for himself there. He already pitted for tyres, he pitted for hard tyres, which is a bit of a peculiar move for a 50-minute race, may I say, but I guess it all comes down to your personal preference of tyre choice. Mostly everyone's going to be taking, once again, Daigo's not actually enjoying himself too much at all, as it does seem that's going to be him spinning, but unfortunately the cameras in AC are absolutely terrible here. But again, he's just going to have to be a tiny bit careful. Equinox actually going a bit slow there. It was actually down to a 6/10 gap, as we did see between him and Gelos. Unfortunately, it does seem he's going to lose all of that time. I'm not sure what happened there, but he is actually getting it back. I assume Gelos might be waiting. It almost looks like he is, with 8 minutes left to go of the first race here for tonight. right now, waiting for this to happen. It doesn't mean actually Equinox has this huge pace advantage out of any of the drivers here on the track here, shaving down what seems to be 3 seconds since I last checked between the two drivers. Now Equinox probably facing a last lap battle here between him and Gelos for the win of the first race here for tonight. As it does stand though, it does seem Gelos is starting to create a tiny bit of a gap. It's still 1.4 seconds though, but that has again significantly decreased in size since we last checked. But it does seem that Gelos is starting to get a wriggle on now. It does seem he's starting to feel the pressure now of that Praga. Again, it is quite random to see Pragas and Tatuses in the same lobby, but I find it quite cool, obviously, until the balance of performance is just slightly better, which is just going to take some time, obviously, between the cars. It is definitely going to be a work in progress for that, I believe. I think it's 120 kilograms bop to the Tata so far, which I believe is, I think it's the most amount of bop you can give a car. I could be wrong on that, obviously, but as it stands now, it is still, I think, a tiny bit uneven, but you can obviously change that between the cars. This Tata's obviously having the better tyre advantage as well over time, but it's only a 15-minute race, so the tyres shouldn't be dying too quickly when thinking of it. But now we can see going on to probably one of the final laps, thinking of it now with 5 minutes left to go, probably about 3 or 2 laps left. And now we do see going into turn 1, it's going to be a 5 tenths gap. So again, it does seem that slipstream is absolutely critical here for the Praga of Equinox to get remotely close to Gelos. So again, skill is right about that, about the slipstream being absolutely overpowered here for the Praga. But I guess that is what's making them stand out between them and the Tatuses. It does seem again Tom unfortunately going off, as we can see on the leaderboard. Of just 3 minutes remaining, about 2 laps depending on where the cars are on track. We do see Gelos is starting to create a gap once again between him and Equinox. So I'm starting to assume those hard tyres are starting to take its place here into today's race on those Tatuses. As we can see now, the medium tyres are starting to wear off for Equinox. That's why the gap is definitely increasing. But apart from that, nothing else is really happening in terms of it. We can see it's a 1:45.7 is going to be the best time of the day here, set by the one and only Gelos currently in pole position. That will obviously change going into the second race. He will start, well, this is if he finishes first, obviously. If he finishes first, he will be demoted all the way to the back of the field for the second race, of the night, which is going to be definitely quite good in terms of racing. Hopefully the Pragas will not make it easy for the Tatuses to get by, or the Tatuus, shall I say. as we now see Gelos entering what will be going to be the penultimate lap now of today's races. It does seem he is actually approaching another car, I believe. Yeah, we can see just a car ahead of him. Actually hearing a car going off there, that is going to be again, unfortunately, Tommy has not had a good time in that Tatuus. In fact, it's really damaged now with 3 laps down with a cracked windscreen. As you can see, he's probably going to be facing quite a bit of suspension damage at it. So that is going to be him actually going into pole position for the second race though, because I do not think he's going to be able to get 3 laps in the span of 1 minute now, as we do go back on board with the leader, which is going to be obviously the Tatuus of Gelos, as you can see in the top left of your screen. Now going into one of the final corners now, as we enter into sector 3 being one of the shortest sectors here, with only the span of 4 corners and 2 of them being in the same proximity of each other. So now we do see the number 38 Tatuus coming across into the final 2 corners now of the MotoGP layout of Barcelona to take on the final lap of race 1 here. Has been able to create himself a 6.8 second gap since we last spoke about the gap between them both. As you can see now, the Praga just entering the final corner, so you can see a relatively big distance. So there is definitely something going on there with Gelos's car. As we do enter onto the final lap with only 20 seconds left to go, we will go into the overtime state, which is definitely always going to happen. Usually you never get a perfectly timed race, as we do now see Gelos is going to go round into the final few corners of sector 1 now to speak, with a 7.1 second gap as we speak, as it is just actively going up now. So definitely, again, I'm going to keep saying definitely, it seems, but he is definitely going up, as it does seem the leader has 2 laps left to go. I don't know why it does that, so it's not going to be the end of the race. He does have 2 laps left to go. I forgot about that on today's race. But in terms of the timer, this is the final lap. The leader entering the final lap of the race, going to take the 10 laps here for tonight. Hopefully he has enough fuel. Not trying to commentate his curse him, it's just more a curiosity than a curse. As we do go into the final 2 corners now of sector 1 for the final time of race 1. He is going to take home P1 at this rate, with a 9-second gap between him and P2. So definitely being such a consistent driver there, as we can see his fastest lap time of a 1:45.0, which I believe he set 2 laps ago, sorry, as he's now did a 1:46.2 last lap. So it's starting to decrease in time between the drivers here, but Equinox's time seemed to be relatively similar, to be fair. 1:46.6 is his best time, which is seeming to be the consistency of the Tatuus there. As well as his best lap time, well, his last lap time being a 1:47.7. You can see a tiny bit of a mistake as he goes a bit wide into turn 8 there. As we do enter into sector 3 for the final time of race 1 here for tonight, it is going to be him taking home
pole position here for tonight's race, as he's going to come across the final corner onto the start-finish straight. As we are looking at the winner of tonight's first race of the qualification formatted race here. Gelos taking the winners. We do see it's going to be, I believe, Tommy going off onto the final corner, unfortunately for himself. And that is going to be Gelos winning the race for race number 1. Followed then by Equinox, just behind him in the Praga, as he does spin out there, taking P2. And it's going to be Sayers quite a far gap behind now, 36 seconds between him and the leader as he enters into the penultimate corner now, and into the ultimate corner, as it does seem now coming across the start finish line to round out the top 3 here for tonight. It is going to be Sayers taking home P3 and P2 in the Praga class here, as we can see now Diego as well coming through the final corner to take P4 for tonight's race overall, but he does go quite wide there, so he's actually going to lose even more time, unfortunately, and that is going to be him taking home P4 for tonight's race. Now we wait, going on to the second race as everyone starts going back into pits. We will go back to the intermission screen for now. I will just quickly catch up on chat if anyone said anything. It doesn't seem anyone has, which is completely fine. But again, it is going to be a tiny bit of a wait until we see the to the service switch over into the second race of the night. So while that happens, I will just leave you for a second so I can fill up my water bowl. Now we go on to race 2 of the night, the final race. As it does seem we've actually lost another... No, we haven't. We've lost one car, it seems, here for tonight, unfortunately. But we will go on to the second race, which is going to be that reverse grid ratio. As we can see tonight, it's going to be Gelos in P4, Equinox in P3, Diago in P2, and then Tommy taking pole position for the second race here for tonight. How long this will last, I'm not too sure, because it does seem it is going to be quite OP from the Tatuus here for tonight. But can the Pragas make it just a tiny bit more difficult for them, as we do see the 6 lights, it seems, has activated here. As we wait, we will see the cars starting to rev now. As we do see, it's going to be 6 red lights, and it is going to be go here for the second race and the final race of tonight here for the 4 cars. As we do see the Praga is going to be able to get a good start there. Tommy getting quite a good reaction. Diago as well taking P2, but not for very long. It does seem Equinox already going straight up into P2 as he gets the inside line going into turn 1 there. Isn't going to get it just done though. Actually, looking at the camera angle, it wasn't going to work, but hopefully Equinox can get by for himself as quickly as he can, because he does not want to be falling in this position of being behind the Tatuus already. As we go into turn 3 now, he is just going to have to, again, be patient though, because he doesn't want to be too much of a dangerous driver trying to do it. As we do see, there's going to be a lockup there from Tommy. Is Tommy going to go off? Tommy has already gone off, unfortunately, going off into turn 3. That's going to be him already demoted to last position for tonight's and final race of the night. Diago now, a lot of battle here between the 2 drivers. Diago though, unfortunately for him, staying in the lead here, but it does seem Equinox is very eager to get by as quickly as he can here. So it does seem it's not going to work for himself just yet, as he again has just to wait for the perfect opportunity to get by. And it's going to be the same for Gelos though. Gelos actually losing a ton of time here, but we've seen how that Tatuus works here as we go down. So that's going to be a spin there from Tommy there going into turn 7 and 8, and now we do go on into sector 3 for the first time of the second race. It's still going to be side by side between the 2 Pragas, but it's not going to do anything just yet. Between them both, he's going to lunge for the outside line again. Not going to work. He's going to lose quite a bit of time from attacking, but it does a beautiful switch back there, and it takes pole position there. Equinox going up into the lead onto the final few corners of the first lap here. Is it going to be any sort of retaliation from Diago? As it stands, nothing just yet as we go into the final corner. Actually, that's going to be Diago going quite wide there into the final corner. That is going to lose him a lot of time here, but this is the ideal situation for Equinox. They want Diago and Gelos to both start fighting here, so he loses time and Equinox starts to create a tiny bit of a gap for himself, as they do go quite defensive. Both of them go quite defensive here, but we do see it's going to go side by side here. Gelos going for the outside line, going into turn 1. It's not going to work. There's a tiny bit of a cheeky move there from Diago, almost carrying him off a tiny bit there. And that is going to be now a 2.4 second gap between Gelos and Equinox to lead versus P3. Currently, as it does seem nothing's going to work just yet, as we do see Equinox already being able to get a 1.8 second gap, which is again ideal, because if Gelos gets by, that timer is going to be ticking, and obviously with a higher gap like we're seeing right now, and the battling is going to just lead Equinox to hopefully quite an easy win for himself if he's going to be able to actually keep it in that order, obviously. But now we have to wait and see for any of that to work here, as we do now see going into the chicane here. This is where we've seen him as close than ever, but it's going to be Diago actually spinning. There's going to be a tiny bit of contact there between the 2 cars, and it's going to be Diago unfortunately going down into P3. He's not going to be very happy with himself, to say the least, and he is still in the wall, so we might actually see Tommy catch up to Diago here. Is he still slow? Is he back up? Yes, he is back up, but that has decreased his gap quite significantly, and unfortunately demoted him down to P3 now. Gelos now on a mission to try and get that 7.6 seconds down to minimal, now with 11 minutes left on the clock here. This is going to be, if the Tatuus is actually going to be as OP as it has been claimed to be for tonight's race. Will they be able to make it a double win here for tonight, or we're going to see Equinox take the win for the second race with 11 minutes left to go, going on to the second lap now? It is still going to be quite a relatively big gap. This is where we're starting to see Equinox. No, it does seem Gelos does take the fastest lap time of the race so far, for 52, which isn't relatively fast for himself, but it does seem obviously with that damage he might actually be suffering. But as it stands, it nearly went up to 8 seconds there So that is definitely going to be something to take into consideration, the damage that Gelos will have sustained from that little incident with Daigo last lap. So if that's going to be any aero damage or if it's going to be practically minimal, we will have to find out, but to see how much time he's gaining. But it does seem he is shaving tenths off so far as we speak between him and the leader. So it could be a last lap battle once again if we can see Equinox keeping it consistent. But those medium tires did seem to play its part quite early and starting to slow down in performance quite soon. So if that's going to happen with only 8 laps left remaining, we'll have to find out. Does seem like it's already gone down a second here. This is not good for Equinox. But again, there is that saying, it's one thing to catch a driver, it's another thing to get past a driver. So that is going to be another thing to take into consideration. If he's able to stall time for as long as he can, that is another opportunity for Equinox to potentially win this race between the two drivers. But it seems it's just constantly shaving down that time like it's practically nothing. So there is definitely starting to be something. Going on to lap 4 now, nearly lap 5. We can actually see now coming and approaching to the halfway mark. Daigo, unfortunately, once again spinning in, I believe that's going to be turn 3. Yeah, that is going to be going into turn 3, unfortunately for himself. But we do see the gap now between P1 and P2 has decreased significantly now, down to 2.4 seconds now compared to the 7 seconds I said earlier. So that's almost a 5 seconds decreased in about a lap or so. So that is definitely showing that Gelos is the faster driver at the moment compared to Equinox. That's definitely, it could be driver skill or it could be just the advantage of the car, obviously. So that is just something to take into consideration as well, as we can see. Now, that's actually really Gelos going off there, going on to the final corner. That's going to, again, push that gap up to about 5 seconds there. This is brilliant news now for Equinox going on to the halfway mark of this race. It does seem now as we go on board, back on board with Equinox, is back up into a 7.3 second lead now. So this is where we got to have to start seeing Gelos pull something out of the hat to try and gain that time back. Now, obviously, we saw him do it earlier, but obviously he's going to have dirty tires for about a lap, which is definitely going to throw a spanner into the works, to say the least. Now with just a minute remaining now of the race, plus the 2 laps that we do have, we do actually see Daigo's actually DNF'd from the race yet. Unfortunately, so I assume something went quite catastrophically wrong for himself. That's also going to be Tommy, unfortunately, in the gravel once again for himself. Not what you will be seeing for a driver. And it does seem he is really overheating his tires right now with the amount of burnouts he's doing, but it's down to what is going to be Equinox and Gelos. Gelos now down to 6 tenths between each other. Now we do have about 3 laps remaining Speaking of which, we need to see now if Equinox can actually hold that off for 3 laps. Obviously, the Praga is extremely well under slipstream conditions between the two cars, but it's not the greatest the other way round here. As we go on to the final 2 corners, it's practically neck on neck now. We can see Gelos now just 3 tenths behind, going into the start finish straight for one of the final times now for tonight. As you can see, is this going to be a very defensive move now going from Gelos? As we can see, he's going to go straight for the defensive line, but it's actually going to weave to try and break the toe there as we go down into the first chicane. Once again, he's going to try and break it on a bit later, but it does seem he's actually gained a ton of time from doing that. But we can see Gelos using his car to his advantage of trying to get that corner speed in. As we can now see, it's going to happen once again. This happened last time. He goes very, very wide Equinox, and we can see Gelos is going to try go for the inside line, but it's not going to work this time. Right, Equinox needs to be super careful now as we enter onto the penultimate lap as well. His tyres are definitely going to be feeling it compared to Gelos's tyres. As we do see, it's going to go side by side going into turn 3 here, but we do see it's going to be Gelos having the outside line, so that's going to be a huge disadvantage for himself. Equinox again, the inside line, as we can see, it didn't work though. There's going to be a switch back there from Gelos. It's still going to be side by side going into turn 7 here. As we can see, it's not going to work just yet though. As we do see, it's still going to go side by side. This has been side by side for practically half of a sector now, and we're going to see it's going to be Equinox trying to force himself to try and get the inside line going into turn 8. It's not going to work though, as we can see Tommy off in the grass, so unfortunately. But we do see it's going to be Gelos taking P1 again, but this is where we can see Equinox starting to retaliate now with the higher slipstream rate that he gets going in to the first corner of the sector 3 here. Also, the Moto GP layout, it does seem he almost had the lead once again. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to sustain it there, and we do see Gelos just switching him back and taking the position now as we go on to the start finish straight. No, this is actually going to be Equinox going off there, unfortunately. That's going to be extremely unfortunate for himself there, and that is going to be now potentially our race finalist now before Stewart's interventions, obviously. But we do see it's going to be again Tommy unfortunately going off for himself, and now going on to the final lap of the race. Can we see if Equinox can actually try and get this final few corners to retaliate to try and regain his position of P1, because he was able to hold it all the way down to the final lap here, where we're going to see Gelos just absolutely bolt it away. It does seem that's starting to happen now, and it has been the obvious, I guess you could say, the pattern of today's races. We do see Gelos winning the second race at this rate, but obviously on top of that we will start seeing the Tatuuses, or the Tatuus shall I say, in this series becoming probably more and more weak though throughout, because of obviously the BOP experimentations that they will start to be doing. As I also want to apologize though now if commentary has been a tiny bit dry. Obviously I've just came back from summer break. My summer break was 4 weeks of commentary, which again is quite a long time if you think about it. Plus it's 35 degrees in my room practically, so it is extremely hot in my room, so it's definitely hard to focus. I promise my comms aren't always like this, so I do apologize, but obviously it's kind of difficult as well to commentate on races when there's not much happening, so that is why there's also going to be some quiet spots. But now we do go on into the final few corners now left. I believe we're going on into the penultimate corner. Yes, we are. As we go through into the penultimate corner now, on board with Gelos, who will be taking home P1 for tonight's race. Both of them practically almost scoring a hat-trick, gets an 100% win ratio for tonight as he comes across the line to take P1 for round 5 here at Barcelona, followed then by Equinox taking P2. He's not going to be very happy with himself there, obviously, with the issues that he sustained onto the final lap, and that is going to be then as well Tommy just currently going through into the penultimate corner now. Definitely not had the best of races, to say the least, through the 2 races we have had here tonight, but hopefully he will come back stronger than ever for the next round here, as we do see him coming through into the final corner. He gets really loose there, and he comes home to take P3 there. Also last on track, unfortunately, there. So that is going to be a huge collision there between him and the Alfa Romeo. And then unfortunately Diego, unfortunately, just having to retire from the race. I believe he had a bit too much damage there. But that is going to be the end of tonight's race. Again, I do apologise if the stream was a tiny bit dry. It's kind of difficult with the factors that I said earlier, and I'm still a tiny bit rusty, but hopefully when I'm back for next time, I shouldn't sustain these same issues. But for now, I will see you guys later. Have a great rest of your weekend and your summer holidays if you're still in school or college or education at all. But apart from that, I will see you guys later. Bye.